Hi everyone, it's Fairy Witch One here, and I am going to do some videos with you. And today I'm going to talk about dragons. If you want to know what's been going on in my life, I'll put a link down below to my other channel, Vicky's Wiccan World, so you can know what's been going on. I've done an update video there, so I'll do that for you, so you can find out what's been going on and why I keep telling you I'll do videos and I don't. It's all explained in that video, so hopefully you will understand and that'll all be good. But today, because we're still on the fire elements, I'm going to go into dragons because they're part of the fire elements. I've got my notes. If I'm looking down, I'm sorry. Again, I am dyslexic, so if I mispronounce anything that I'm reading to you from my notes, I'm very, very sorry. So, here we go. Let's talk about dragons. So sadly, these wonderful fire spirits have been turned into demons by our culture and its history. They represent unbridled instinctual powers of several types. They personify the fertile, elemental power of nature, and as such were regarded as destructive by patriarchal society. Can't say this word. Patriarchal society. That's a word that I can never say. This is why there are so many stories about heroes slaying dragons, which, interestingly, are often related to those heroes through family ancestry. So let's get into more. For instance, in Sumerian myth, the hero / god Marduk slays the dragon to mate, which is actually his own great-great-great-grandmother, and from whom he has presumably inherited his power. St. George is another dragon slayer, and it is worth noting that the name George derives from the Greek meaning earth. Some people have interpreted this as the offspring by men of a power that was essentially female. Others see it as logic and materialism overcoming instinct and the fires of the spirit. The story, as it is given below, which is what I'm going to read to you, is in fact more about courage and common sense. So I'm going to tell you about the story of St. George. In England, we have a day for St. George, and that is the 23rd of April. So that is our St. George's Day. Not many people really celebrate that anymore, but it is a day for St. George. So basically, St. George is the patron saint of England, but he was actually born in Palestine, the son of a Roman officer. In truth, he never killed a dragon at all, but rather overcame his irrational fear of it. And this is his story. In Old Baru, the townspeople had for many years been terrorised by a dragon that lived in a cave by a stagnant lagoon. Most of these stories that you hear about dragons as well are all around the same thing, that the village is terrorised by dragons. When the foul fumes from the lagoon blew over the town, the people would blame the dragon. It was only a matter of time. They muttered to each other before the terrible creature came and attacked them. They began to feed it 2 sheep every day to keep it at bay. Now, you'll find different tellings of St. George's story, because this is very, very typical of dragon stories that you'll see. The dragon never came near the town, but, not surprisingly, it stayed put, waiting for this regular free lunch. Soon the townspeople ran out of sheep, for they too were poor and starving. The dragon was taking all their resources, and they were beginning to panic. They turned to the king, beseeching him to save their lives. We have given this monster our thousands of sheep, and still "It will not go away," they cried. "What is to be done?" So they've gone to ask the king. The king sat with his head in his hands, and after much thought he made a terrible decision. "We must feed it our children," he told the horrified townspeople. "It is the only way to save our town." The victims were chosen by a dreadful lottery. Each child was given a number, and each Tuesday a number was drawn and a child was torn from its weeping parents to be tied up outside the dragon's lair. It needed no noxious vapours from the lagoon to poison the town, for it was filled with horror and sorrow. Faces were pale, and neighbour looked anxious at neighbour, no one ever knowing when it would be the turn of his own children and family to suffer this ghastly fate. 3 months of this had passed. 12 children had been sacrificed, and 12 families plunged into mourning. When George rode into town, there was a great commotion at the palace, because, unknown to the king, his own daughter had insisted that she also be given a number. And today, hers had been pulled out. At the very moment the young princess, was tied up outside the dragon's lair, waiting to be devoured by the monster. "My daughter, my only daughter, my precious golden-haired child," wept the king, struggling to accept her fate. "Your Majesty, it is by your own decree, and besides it's too late. The dragon will have her by now," they told him, some of them secretly pleased that the king would sample the true effects of his decree. Hearing this, George leapt upon his horse and galloped to where the dragon lurked, and the young girl cowered. The townspeople watched from afar in fear and excitement. When George saw the dragon, he dismounted, standing between the dragon and the terrified girl. He looked the dragon in the eyes. "Your days of eating human flesh are at an end," said George. "Yield to me and your life will be spared." To the amazement of all who looked on, the great dragon lowered its huge head as smoke curled from its enormous nostrils. "Let this foolishness be at an end," declared George, bowing before the princess and untying her. "My lady," said he, "I trust you will prove a better souvenir than your father." Taking a ribbon from a hair of the princess, George bound it around the dragon's neck and led the beast back to the town, along with the joyful girl. Great was the rejoicing in the town, and George was duly rewarded. Several years later, the princess married a prince from a neighbouring country, and the tame dragon formed part of their wedding procession. However, they were never so foolish to let it play alone with their children. So basically that's the story of St. George. So now I want to tell you what is meant by the story. It is quite obvious that the message of this tale is that only thing we have to fear is fear itself. It was fear, and unprovoked fear, at that, the cost, the townspeople, their sheep, and then, horror of horrors, their children. It was their own stupidity and cowardice that brought sorrow and powerlessness upon them. The dragon in the story merely formed according to their expectations, but once it was confronted, it behaved like a lamb. It's a tough lesson for the fire spirits to face our own fears and to realise that actually they come from nowhere but ourselves. In myth, dragons often guard treasure. This is symbolic of hidden wisdom that can only be gained through some test of courage or initiative. The dragon, as a truly magical creature, may apparently be slain, but this is a metaphor for overcoming our inner demons and entering the domain of the fire spirits. In the intentions experience that is profoundly changing. Dragons may be regarded as the power that surges within the earth and which sometimes manifests as ley lines. So we all know what ley lines are, so I'm not going to go into that just now. But I can do a video on ley lines if you want to. The Uffington White Horse, carved into the landscape of the English country of Berkshire, is said by some to be a dragon. In Chinese culture, the dragon is truly valued and is seen as the benevolent, gift-bearing creature that it is. There is a dragon for each of the elements, and the most powerful of all, the imperial dragon, holds a wonderful pearl either in its claws or under its chin. This magical jewel has the ability to multiply whatever it is placed close to, such as gold, fine clothes, and food. The dragon has supernatural sight and hearing, and its eyes are often molten gold and shimmering springs. It is a guardian and a tremendous source of spiritual power. If you draw close to one of these marvelous creatures, it is likely that your eyes will be opened in some way, your strength will be increased, and you will be always protected. So basically, that is it for dragons. Sorry about my reading again. I do keep pre-warning you on these videos. I am dyslexic, so when I am reading, I can mispronounce things, and I definitely have in this video, so apologies to you all. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to be continuing on with the fire spirits over the next few weeks, so I really do hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit the like button, and I will see you in my next video. Blessed be everybody.